Hi everyone. So let's start quest number 7. So in quest number 7, we have 4 exercises in total, and let's start from the first one. This first one, we will implement a program which should multiply all elements of array by 2. So we take the input array of numbers, and we have to multiply by 2 each element of that array and return this array. Okay, what should we know before that? It is how to it's first of all, how can we access the elements inside array? So it's very simple. We say array and that rectangle brackets, and inside that rectangle brackets we specify the position, and then we access element, and how can we change the value inside this element, and the simple way will be to write that kind of line. So we specify the element of array that we want to change. We write equal, and then we might write that kind of code, like 2 multiplied by same element. So it means that the element at the beginning of array at 0 position, it will be multiplied by 2, and that array itself will be changed. So if we run that kind of code, our array will change to 2, 2, 3. So initially it was 1, 2, 3, but since we multiplied the first element of array by 2, it will be changed to 2, 2, 3. And we have to we have to do same operation for each element inside the array, and probably we can do it by using for loop again, but I think there might be like many other ways how to do it. Okay, so let's implement our idea. First, we take that function. We take that function, and let's find the length, so number of elements inside this array, and we will I will use for loop to do that. So we assign that variable I to 0, since it's beginning of array. We say that I should be less than length of array, and we will increment I by 1 after each iteration, and here we should apply that logic. So element at position I should be multiply of itself. And then we return our input array again, because in that for loop we actually changed the values inside array, and here we returned that array again, and it's called in place algorithm. So we didn't use any extra space to we didn't create new array, or so we didn't use any extra space, but instead we changed elements of our input array itself, and then we are returning it. Okay, we can compile this code. Let's say let's pass array of ones, and then okay, we compile this code, and as you can see, our array of ones became array of twos because we multiplied each element inside this array by 2. Okay, let's move to the second. Let's move to the exercise 1, which is our second exercise. In this exercise, we simply take the input array of strings, and we should return array of integers, array of numbers, which contain the length of string to the corresponding position. So let's look at this example. In this example, so our first element inside input array is this word. It has exactly 4 characters, and it is and the 4, which is length of our this word, will be the first element of our output array. So what should we know in order to complete this exercise? Firstly, we should learn how to initialize new empty array. So by using this JavaScript syntax, we say variable, we then say array, and then we use this new array keyword, and that's how we say that variable ARR is our empty array. It means that we can apply all methods that we can use for array to this variable, and also we must remember that string, it is just array of characters. So for example, this word is just array which consists of upper T, H, I, and S. And as any other array, it has attribute length. So we can access the length of that string by typing variable dot length. And we apply same logic as we did before. We should traverse input array and assign needed values to corresponding position of output array. So once again, there might be many other ways how to do this, but I will use for loop. Let's load it and write this function from the scratch. Okay, let's first define our output array. is new. And then we should define the length of our input. And we will use for loop. Okay. And here, so our and inside this for loop, we will assign, like, we will add new values to our output array. And so the element at position I inside our output array should be equal to the length of string of input array at position I. So from 1I. So we access string at position I of our input array. But we are asked for the length of that string. So we use the attribute length, and then and after we check, like after we traversed each element inside this array and change it and extracted like lengths of each string inside this array, we must return our output array here, and we can check our code by console log console log this, console my count on it. Okay. Let's compile this code. So everything is fine. The function does what, like function works as we want it to work, and we can check it with Candle. Candle exercise 1. It's working good. Okay, let's move to the next exercise. In exercise 2, we should find unique elements inside our number array. So our input array might have some duplicates, and we must return only unique characters. So like so for example, if our input is 1, 1, 2, unique elements here only 1 and 2, so we should return 1 and 2. What might be like key ideas to implement this function? So we know how to initialize new array. We once again define some new output array, and then we traverse our input array, and if and we apply that logic. So if element of input array is not in our output array, we add this element to our output array and move to the next element. but if this element of input array is already in output array, we should ignore it. And we might ask ourselves question like, how can we check this element inside the output array or not? I believe that there might be plenty of ways how to do it, but I used that includes method, which is available to all array variables in JavaScript. So that method returns true if parameter inside array. So if I wrote that code, it will be true if param that our argument param inside R. Okay, let's apply this logic. Okay, let's tilt it. Okay. So first we use len. And we must declare our output array. And we use for loop. Okay. And I think we should also define a variable which counts the number of unique numbers inside input array. So let's call it just count. So we first specify count to be 0. Okay, and then we use if statement by applying that method that I mentioned before, includes. So if our output array includes that the element at position I of our parameter 1, so actually if I use this sign to, which means not. So so it means that when we call this method includes, so when it returns true, this statement becomes false. But when that method returns false, this statement will become true. So actually, if that output array does not contain element at position I of our parameter 1, our if statement will become true and the block of code in that region should be executed. It means that output, so we say output array count, it should be equal to our parameter 1 at position I. And then we increment count by 1 because we found unique element and our count should be and we add 1 to our count. Okay, and then we simply return our output array. Okay, we can check it. So let's pass 1, 1, 2, 2, and 5. Let's compile this code. Yeah, and it's working fine because it returns the unique numbers. And we can check it with Gandalf. Yeah, Gandalf accepted our solution, so it should be working fine. Yep. And let's move to the last exercise. Here we will work with hash. It is so you can read description here. So it is data structure which is very similar to array, but if in array we access element according to its position, like using number, in hash we can we can access it by any type. So so let's say we declare hash in that way. We use that curly brackets and say like age should be 32, name is Luke. So in order to access 34, for example, we say my hash, that rectangle brackets, and instead of number we use age. So that each keyword, each word will become key to access our value 34, and same applies to name. Okay, and how we calculate average, I think we are familiar with that formula. So we first of all sum all elements and divide it to the number of that elements. And I think the main logic will be traverse each hash in input array. We compute the sum of all integers, and we divided the sum to length of input array. So note that our input is array which contains hash as elements. So yeah, so each element of our array is object or hash, and after accessing this element of our array, we should apply that key integer to access the score, the math score of that particular student. Okay, let's check it. Let's delete this answer. And first we should check that if this array is empty or not, because if the number of elements inside this array is 0, there might be some problems like division by 0. So in order to prevent this, let's first check the length of our input array. If it is equal to 0, we should simply return 0.0. Okay, then we must traverse this array. I should be less than length of our parameter 1, and we increment I after each iteration. And according to our logic, first of all, we should declare some variable in order to compute sum of all integer key values. So let's say var sum is equal to 0. Okay, then so sum. So we add all integer keys. So parameter 1 I. By writing this, we access hash at position I of parameter 1. So if I is 0, it means that we access that object. And then in order to access 1, we should apply keyword integer. So we again use that rectangle brackets, and inside this we specify integer as our key. And by writing this syntax, we access actually that the numbers 1 or 18 or 13. Okay, and we computed the sum of all test scores. What should we do next? Next, we should return sum and divide it by number of elements inside of our input array. Okay, we can check it. So so we pass that array of objects to our function, and the output should be 9.5. Let's compile this code. Yep, it's working fine. And I think we can check it with Gandalf. Pardon, I forgot to remove this. I think because of that, it will return 0. Okay. It is returning failure because actually we are not rounding this number to. So after that dot, we should have only one number, but so we should round it like two significant digits. How can we do this?
Vyacheslav, there in JavaScript there are two fixed methods. Or yes, we can use round. So let's Google how to round the digit.
Okay, so how we round number in JavaScript?
Method round, I think. Yeah.
So this round method rounds number to nearest integer.
Yeah, but we don't need the nearest. We need the highest.
Yeah, but I think it might cause problem because it rounds to the integer while we while we need float number, or it will be okay. Okay, let's look to the other options. So we can use that math function round, or I think we also can use that toFixed method. So when so according to that answer, it rounds this number like to to 2 decimal points after the dot sign. Okay, let's do this. And we use the fixed, and after dot we need only one number, so I think we should write 1. Okay, and let's check it with Gandalf again. Yeah, it's working good. Yeah, so I think it's very good advice to search or Google something that you don't know, to ask questions in Google. And yeah, so that's all for Quest 7. Thank you for your attention.